All right, so we're going to talk some more about factoring tonight, and this time it's going to be a little different than what we did last time because we're putting a number here in the a spot. So far we've factored things like x squared plus 3x plus 8, something like that, where this x, or the a, the coefficient of x here is always 1. So what we're going to look at now is how to handle it when it's not a 1. So steps to consider when you're factoring. You always want to take out a greatest common factor first if you can. Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. Sometimes the only thing you can do is take out a common factor, but you always want to check that first. Find the first term in each binomial, think of the factors of the first term, think of the factors of the third term that would create that middle term. So we're going to make a little chart here and just talk about the signs for just a second. Because we know that when we take a binomial like this, ax plus, or ax squared plus bx plus c, there are several things that can happen with our signs here in the middle. They can both be positive, they can both be negative, or one can be positive and one can be negative. But these are clues to help us when we're factoring. I know it's going to factor to two binomials. So I have two signs here. Now, this first sign here is the one that is that I always look at first. I know it's second, but I always look at it first because in order to get this C term, we have to do the, if we remember our FOIL, it's that L term last. If I multiply this number times this number, I'm going to get this C. Well, the only way you can get a positive number when you're multiplying is if the signs are the same. So if I have a positive here, I know I'm either going to have two negatives or I'm going to have two positives. So I know right away that what my signs are going to be. Now, how I know whether they're both positive or negative depends on this sign, which is why we start here. If this is positive, I'm going to look over here, and if it's positive, both my signs are positive. If it's negative, so if it looks like ax squared minus bx plus c, this is going to look like this. And this one will be, here, I'll erase this. This one will be plus, plus. So that just gets us really going in the right direction as a factor, knowing what those signs are. Now, the other thing that can happen is that this is a negative sign. So let me make a chart here, and we'll fill in this chart. So if they're both positive, then we're going to have positive, positive, right? If they're both negative, then we're going to have negative, negative. So our other options are if this is negative. Now, the same logic applies here. If the second sign is negative, so if the second one is negative, the only way to get a negative number when you multiply two numbers together is to have one of them be positive and one of them be negative. Okay, so if I end up with a C that is negative, I'm going to have plus and a minus. Now, I can use this sign here to help me decide which one of these is positive and which one is negative, but we'll talk about that a little bit more whenever we have some examples. It's easier to kind of see. So for now, this is what we need to know. If both of the signs are positive, then both of my signs are positive. Here, if both, no, not both are negative. If both are negative, one's positive and one's negative. And if the second sign is negative, then they are both, or one, you have one and the other. Oh, there's another way. Yeah, well, that's it. That's enough to get you going. Any more and we'll just get confusing. So let's try some. So this one here, I'm going to write this down. Okay, so I'm looking here and this is positive. So I know my signs are going to be the same. So I look back here and this is positive, so they're both positive. Now the difference here is that now I'm going to look at this 2. I have to consider the factors that give me this one as well as this one. And last time we could just write down that y and be done, but now we got this 2 to deal with. So the factors of 2 are 2 times 1, and that's it. So I'm going to put a 2 here and a 1 here. The factors of this 2 are 2 times 1, and that's all I can put. So I could put a 2 here and a 1 here. But I'm going to have to check, because since I've added this number here, it kind of changes things a little. So if I multiply my middle, 2 times 1 is 2y, and then my outer, 2y times y is also 2y, and 2y plus 2y is 4y, and that does not get me my middle of 5. So that's not going to work. So I don't ever like to erase them when I'm factoring, because I want to remember what I tried, because sometimes you get ones that are really difficult and you like try 3 and 4 times and then you forget what you tried. So we're just going to make a line through it, and we're going to write our parentheses again. I know it's plus and plus, and I know this is going to be 2y and y. But now I'm going to flip this 2 and this 1, and I'm going to put the 2 over here and 1 here. So that's all I did, was I just changed that. So I still have 2 times 1 that gets me this 2. But now I have a different middle, because now I'm going to do 2 times 2, which is 4y, and the inside, which is 1 times y, which is 1y. And that will get me my 5y that I want. 4 plus 1 is 5y. And I want to make sure it's a positive 5y, because that was what I needed up there. And now I've just made a big mess up here, but I want to make sure I check. 2 times y gives me my 2y squared. 1 times 2 gives me my 2. And the middle does indeed get me my 5y in the middle. Okay? All right, so let's try this one. This time we have a plus sign again, but now we have a minus sign here. So I am going to have 2 negatives. Again, it's both negative, because the only way to get a plus or a positive number here is to have the same sign. I'm going to write my factors up here. The factors of 7 are 7 and 1, and those are the only factors of 7 and 1. Now this one has a couple of them, though. I could do 6 times 1, or I could do 2 times 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put down my 7 and my 1, since those are the only ones there. And n and n. And now I've got to decide, do I want to do 6 and 1 or 2 and 3? I got a pretty big number here, so I might try 6 and 1. I know that when after I do my multiplying, I have to add them together. So if I did 6 and 1, I wouldn't want to put the 6 here, because 6 times 7 would give me 42, and I'm already too big. But if I put the 1 there, then I'm only going to get a 7, and I don't think that's going to get me to 23. So I'm going to try the 2 and the 3. So I'm going to put 2 here, and I'm going to put 3 here. And it really, factoring is just guess and check, so just put it in there and then see what happens. So 1 times 3 gives me a negative 3n. 2 times 7 is going to give me a negative 14. And that only gives me 17, and that didn't get me my 23, so that isn't going to work. So I'm going to mark that out. I'm going to try again. Let's see. Let's do... So we're going to keep our negative 1 and our negative 7 and our n and our n, but let's flip it and let's put the 3 here and the 2 here this time. So now we have negative 2, and then 7 times 3 is 21. Negative, so now I've got my negative 23 that I needed in the middle, and so that is going to be my answer. So the key to factoring is to always, always, always check your answer and make sure it works. Don't just put numbers down there and go on with it. You have to check. There's just no other way to do it. All right, let's try another one. So this one has a negative on the back end, so that means my signs are going to be different. So 1 plus, 1 minus, I don't know which is which. I'm just going to throw them down. We'll figure that out later. Now, this number does tell me something, even though it doesn't necessarily tell me which is which. It does tell me that my bigger value is going to have to be negative in order for that to end up negative. The factors of 3 are 3 and 1. So I can go ahead and just put 3 and 1 down here. And then the factors of 5 are 5 and 1, and that's it. So I know I've got a D and a D. And I need 14, so I'm probably going to want to multiply that 3 times the 5. So I'm going to put the 5 here and the 1 here. Okay? So then if I multiply here, 3 times 5 is 15, and then 1 times -1 is -1, and that gives me a positive 14. Now here's the problem. I got positive 14. This is negative 14. So really the only thing I did wrong was I got my signs backwards. So I'm going to change that one to a positive and that one to a negative. I probably should just erase that just so it's nice and neat, right? So let's make that one a negative. So now if I check it, I've got negative 15 and positive 1, which gives me a negative 14, and that's what I wanted. So that one is my answer. Okay? Let's try another one. Negative again, so we're going to have different signs, 1 plus, 1 minus. Multiples of 3 are 3 and 1. Whoops. Going to have an N here and an N here, and 2, the multiples of 2 are 2 and 1. So now, let's see. This is a positive number. So I'm going to put my 2 here and my 1 here. Let's see how that works. 3 times 1n is 3n. 2 times -1 is -2n. 3 minus 2 is a positive n, and that is what we want. And look at there, we got it on the first try. So you can see that the more you do this, the more you just kind of start to see how things work and how things turn out, the better you get at guessing. It might take you, 2 or 3 tries to get the right answer, but that's okay, don't worry. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So let's try another one. This one is a positive, so I'm going to have 2 signs that are the same. I'm going to look back here, and that's positive, so I know they're both positive. Again, multiples of 6 are 6 and 1 and 2 and 3, so I've got a couple options now. And then up here, I've got 4 times 1 and 2 times 2. So I really could have a lot of different combinations here. You could use the 4 and the 1 and the 6 and the 1, and you could flip the 6 and the 1. So these two together give you 2 different options. Then you could do the 2 and the 2 and the 6 and the 1 plus flip, that's 2 more. Or you could do the 2 and the 2 and the 2 and the 3 and flip the 2 and the 3, which actually is only 1. So, we've got like 5 or 6 different options here. So we're going to have to think a little bit more before we just start guessing. All right, so I need a 14 in the middle. It's not a very big number, so I probably don't want to be multiplying 4s and 6s together. That's too much. So I'm gonna go with the 2 and the 2. Okay. And then if I put in my 2 and my 3, 2 and 3, okay? 2 times 3 gives me 6. Why? 2 times 2 here in the middle gives me, whoops, get that off of there. Gives me, well, it's not going to get off there. All right. 4y. And that gives me 10y. So that didn't give me the right thing. Now, if I switched my 2 and my 3, it wouldn't really change anything, would it? Because I'm still going to be multiplying by that. So I'm either going to change my 4 and my 1 or the 6 and the 3. But I think I'm going to change that first one. I think I'm going to try, let's try 4y plus 2 and 1y plus 3. Okay? So, let's see, that gives me 2y, and then 3 and 4, it gives me 12y. 12 plus 2 is 14y, and that's it. And all my signs are right, so that's my answer. Okay, so why don't you pause the video here and see if you can do this last one, number 6, and then I will come back and do it for you. Okay, now before we move on to this one, I was looking at this while I paused the video for you guys to work it, and we forgot to take a number out before we factor. So as I was looking at it, you know, I said at the very beginning, make sure you look, and then I didn't do it. This right here, 2 and 4 have a common factor. So I could have taken out a 2 before I started. So I can take it out now because the common factor between 2y or 4y and 2 is 2. So if I pull a 2 out, I'm left with 2y plus 1 and y plus 3. That is my final answer. So it probably would have made my life a little easier up here at the top if I would have done it first. So I'm going to go to the next slide. If you've got some space on down below it or something, you can do this with me. I'm going to do it over for you and show you because I want you to see this. Let me move this out of the way. So it was 4y squared plus 14y plus 6. Okay, so these are all even numbers, so I can take a 2 out of everything here. So I'm going to just put my 2 down, and then I've got 2y squared plus 7y plus 3. Now, what that did was it eliminated some of my options for factoring this. You know, when we did it before, we had like, you know, the 6 and the 1 and the 2 and the 3, you know. So since I took that 2 out, it kind of makes this a little bit easier because now the only thing I got here is 3 and 1. So 3 and 1, and the only options I have here are 2 and 1. 2y and y. So that gives me y. This gives me 6y. 6y and y is 7y, and that's my middle. There's my answer. Okay? So sometimes it's easier, well, most of the time it's easier if you take that common factor out before. But you always want to check and make sure. Okay, so let's go back to this one because this one has one you can take out too. All 3 of these are divisible by 6. So I'm going to put the 6 down. 18 divided by 6 is 3, so I have 3k squared. 12 divided by 6 is 2, 2k. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and I have just 1. Okay? So now when I go to factor this one, it's a whole lot easier because I just have a 3 and a 1. Now the sign is negative, so I know I've got a negative and a positive. Signs are different. My middle is negative. So I'm going to say that my 3 is going to go here, and my 1k is going to go here. Because I want to end up with a negative in the middle. So that's negative 3, and that is a positive 1, and that's going to give me that negative 2 in the middle that I need. And it does. So, final answer, 6 times k minus 1 times 3k plus 1. Now, I do want to tell you that you can flip the factors around. If you put them this way, I don't know why I put that thing up there. If you put them up, let's see, 6, and then you did your 3k here plus 1, and then a k minus 1 this way, that's actually the same thing. Because remember that multiplication is commutative, and you can do it backwards. 5 times 2 is the same thing as 2 times 5. It just kind of depends on where you put that negative sign. You know, if I had put the plus here and the minus, you know, the plus here and the minus here, then, you know, then I would have had it done around the other way too. So it is the same answer. Just need to make sure that all your factors are the same. I can't have a negative here and a positive here. Now that would just change the answer. But if this entire term was written before this one, that's okay. Same thing here too. I could have 2 times y plus 3 times 2y plus 1. That's all the same thing. Those are both the same answers. All right, so there's how you multiply or factor, whenever your a value is greater than 1.